Okay, we're back again. So welcome back, everybody. And we're on the final leg of our wonderful journey over the last 3 days. And we have 4 wonderful showcases to bring us to the end, the finale of our DigitalEd Conference. And delighted to introduce, first up will be Dr. Ellen McCabe from ATU Sligo. Ellen has been working closely with us all on the iNOTE project, and she's going to talk about developing a student support framework through the iNOTE project. So I think we got a sneak preview from Meg earlier on the student support learning journey, and it's great to have Ellen talking us through that now. And then we'll also have from ATU Donegal and the Letterkenny campus, we have student engagement during COVID-19 pandemic. Lydia has done great work in the area of learning analytics, and she's an academic researcher in teaching and learning up in Letterkenny campus. And then you're in the room here, Ilkwish? Ilkwish, sorry. Okay. Well, you're very welcome. You're a research student. You're working with Dr. Cormac Quigley and Dr. Etain Kiley, and also with Donal McGinty. And you're doing some wonderful research in the area of application of machine learning to improve student engagement levels. So thank you for being with us. And then we finally have Dr. Sarah Bertrand from the Galway International Hotel School in the Department of Heritage and Tourism, Humanities, Applied Languages and Communications. So Sarah's going to talk to us about applied tele-collaboration for business students, fostering Franco-Irish links. So lovely way to end our DigitalEd conference. And we're going to hand over now to our first speaker, and we're going to take questions at the very end. Okay, and Jessica is going to come in at the very end and tell you all about how you're going to get all the outputs from DigitalEd over the last 3 weeks. So I suppose before we start with Ellen, I would just like to give a huge thank you to the team in teaching and learning who have worked so hard for the last couple of months in putting this conference together. And you know, it's an amazing output, and the collaboration across the three colleges in our ATU. So thank you so much to all the presenters, all the organisers, our amazing keynotes, and all the back-end team that's working on the technical side, and Studio Rove, who've been here for us all week supporting our broadcasting. So we're delighted with that. So thanks very much, everybody. And I'm going to hand you over to Ellen up in ATU Sligo. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. So as Karina introduced me there, my name is Ellen McCabe, and I'm an instructional designer and member of the iNOTE team at ATU Sligo. For those of you who aren't familiar with iNOTE, it stands for Innovative Opportunities in Transforming Education. And it was kind of one of the first cross-institutional projects of what was the Connacht Ulster Alliance and is now the Atlantic Technical University. We were looking at work package 3 of iNOTE, and that was concerned with the development of an online student support services model. So I'm not sure if you can see my slides there. I can't see them on this end, but that's great. Yeah. So we were looking at student support services, and I suppose the initial kind of challenge for that was creating a primary framework that would guide the project. So that would be kind of like a definitive structure. It was really necessary to create a clear visibility of what was already available to students and highlight any significant gaps or overlaps and potential areas for collaboration. I think that was something that was particularly relevant in this kind of multi-college project. Which is while ATU provides a range of supports services to students, as often happens and was mentioned in the keynote there, some supports can be quite siloed, and conveying the right information at the right time can be challenging. As well as that, kind of taking into consideration the demographic of an online learner who typically could be mature, juggling work and family commitments, that clarity is just really key. So it was vital that the supports be designed and introduced in a very strategic and holistic manner, and ensure that kind of flexibility and accessibility and coherence. And in this way, like facilitating an infrastructure where students can kind of intuitively comprehend what supports might be used together, might be used at a similar stage, and how they relate to one another. Enhancing the visibility and legibility of student supports in that way really necessitated a comprehensive understanding of what was there already and the experiences of those that interact with them on a daily basis. And this could only really be accomplished by engaging with stakeholders from the outset. So to achieve this, the project team collaborated with our colleagues in Galway and Letterkenny to hold a series of focus groups. So the first of these was held in former IT Sligo in March 2020, and then following the shutdown necessitated by COVID, Letterkenny and Galway Mayo sessions were facilitated digitally. And in all, there were 24 participants, including current and past students, employers, lecturers, regional stakeholders, and technical and support staff. And issues in providing a support community for students were certainly borne out during these focus groups. And as one student described it, when you're online, that's missing. So you have to just log in, you get this much time and you've got your piece and then you're left until next week, and that's the kind of disconnect. And then a lecturer sort of alluded to the limitations of an accommodations model inadequately supporting the needs of students when they said, make sure you let us know. We can't do anything until we know that there's a challenge there. And so one of the speakers earlier kind of alluded to this problem, and that a lot of students don't necessarily want to disclose that they have a learning issue or a disability, and they really shouldn't have to. It's kind of problematic, this approach, in that a lot of students might be unaware of what is available, and as well as that, they might have a learning issue that's never been assessed. So kind of while casual interactions can and should be facilitated online, a chance recommendation from a peer or like the opportunity to discern a support by just observing it on campus are obviously less likely. And as a result, students need to be very motivated to seek out supports and services that are relevant to them. So curating our message in relation to supports so that it puts them in the context of the student's learning journey is really essential. Through the focus groups, three kind of elemental stages of the student experience were identified, where students needed particular types of support and guidance. And these were before you arrive, while you study, and when you move on. So taking into consideration the different stages of the student's experience. This interactive graphic was developed initially to give structure to iNOTE Work Package 3. But it's also a practical resource for students, and the graphic offers a broad overview of the support community, how the services relate to one another, when they may be most relevant, and they're kind of organised in a way that students can see at a glance supports that are available for their specific requirement. And these are all hyperlinked to relevant resources. So while we are striving to map all stages of their time as a student and provide that clarity, the necessity of a kind of a really human connection and the reassurance that offers can't be replicated or underestimated. And I think one of the other speakers spoke about, or maybe I think it was a question actually, where they're saying that they asked students how they were doing and they kind of got a deluge of a response from the students. I think even just having someone to just to tell the issues you're having, even if they don't necessarily need to actively offer you help, is really important. So the online student advisor is an important role that was piloted and has really been rolled out now to offer support and reassurance and just guidance to our online students. So with this kind of broad basis, students can access more detailed information on individual supports and explore the stages of the student journey. And guidance in each section of the student journey is arranged around kind of key questions that students would commonly face at that stage. So things like how to choose a course and how to apply. And students would then be directed to relevant supports in relation to these queries and just provided with a little bit of guidance on how they might be utilised. So similarly then, with while you study and with when you move on, clarity is provided around the community available to students and how they can participate in that, and they're directed to different supports relating to things like learning, resources and technologies and student well-being. The student journey framework is in use by the online student advisors as a kind of a central resource for supports and directing students to those. And as well as this, it's openly available on ATU Sligo's website. And the graphic sits on a web page that's been developed kind of around the structure of the student journey, directing students to supports in a very legible and kind of coherent way. So the established framework structure has facilitated a kind of a systemic approach designed to the design and introduction of supports throughout the project. By maintaining that kind of comprehensive visibility on the supports available and the interactions between them, the support, we were kind of able to take that a step further and look at new approaches to integrating supports into curricula and the student experience at each stage. So in this way, kind of mitigating the need for students to seek out supports and that perception that supports are kind of additional or like a detached service. And one simple way of achieving that was by locating access to supports directly on course pages. And I see you were talking about the block that Orla created, which is great. And this is kind of along the same lines, where we put a tile on the university-wide template for Moodle. And in that way, kind of located them in the context of the course. And they're sort of read visually as an integral part of the course that relates to other aspects, so like assessments and learning outcomes, and they can be framed in that context then. So in here, you know, we kind of, again, kind of structured around questions. So are you having problems with comprehension? Here are some supports that might be helpful to you. And again, like mitigating to some extent that perception of supports as external or like extra help. This perception was also addressed by the successful rollout of the academic writing badge. And the form of this badge has kind of provided a template for the design of flexible and intuitive resources. And we've kind of replicated that in some of the ones you see here. As Meg mentioned in the keynote, the benefit of integrating supports directly into curricula without placing that like additional burden on lecturers. So the badge was kind of a good example of that, in that lecturers were able to embed the badge or just like specific elements of the badge that might be relevant to their students onto their own Moodle page. And some of them will offer, say, 10% of the grade for completing the badge or a module from the badge, and others might just advise students to do it. It's just great because it's automatically assessed, and lecturers can really easily track what the students have completed. And that format is currently being utilised in the development of an ATU kind of access course in the form of a badge as well. And the writing badge will be an element of that, but it also has badges on learning and accessibility supports, online research, using the library supports, and evaluating information. As well as this, I don't want to spend too much time on Ally now, but as Kevin went into great detail in his presentation earlier, which is great to see that it's working out well in Galway. But yeah, we've just been looking at accessibility of the learning material itself through Ally. And yeah, so yeah, it's a content accessibility service, obviously, that integrates into the LMS. And as Kevin described, it generates those alternative formats for students and provides feedback to the lecturer on how they can improve the accessibility of the content they've uploaded. One aspect that we found really good is that it also analyzes content into a kind of institution-wide report, which gives those really detailed stats that Kevin was showing earlier, which is great. It kind of gives you a sense of how the institute's performing and where problems are arising and evolving. So you can kind of see what the really like common things that people are kind of tripping up on again and again are. It's just been really enlightening in terms of the design of our own training for accessibility for lecturers, that we can design that now in a really strategic way and try and address those issues before they ever kind of get as far as Ally. So it's been great like that. Another area that was identified through the framework and became particularly pertinent through COVID was the area of mental health and well-being. So 2 services that we introduced to address this were Silver Cloud and Being Well, Living Well. Silver Cloud is more of a kind of a clinical sort of support. It's a flexible and evidence-based mental health support system, and it's easy to use, and all ATU students and staff have access to it now. It's like a series of modules that the student or lecturer staff member can complete at their own pace and in their own time. So it's great for online learners, and each module kind of sets a different goal and provides different information and support, which can be used in everyday life. And it's it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy and targets different kind of specific issues like stress, anxiety, and issues around body image and things like that. Epigeum is a newer resource, Being Well, Living Well is designed by Epigeum, and it's a newer resource. And it's a little bit more, less clinical and more sort of to do with resilience, I suppose. Again, it's kind of structured as an online toolkit and takes that preventative approach to helping students maintain their mental health, physical, emotional, and financial well-being, which is a big thing. The structured framework has also been quite a constructive tool throughout the merger process of ATU, just kind of by providing that visibility on what's available, and an insight into where those gaps could be, or any kind of overlaps and things like that, where we can look to work together in supports in the future. Similarly, the framework provided a really clear oversight on the areas of iNOTE that had the potential to be advanced through the Higher Ed 4.0 project, which is another great project which will be carrying on some of the work developed through iNOTE and beyond. So that's a huge project. And while the initial framework focused on supports available to ATU Sligo students, we're currently collaborating with their colleagues in Letterkenny and Galway Mayo to adapt the framework to the purposes of these colleges. But obviously the ultimate goal would be that when our services become more kind of aligned, that we'll just have one framework that we can all work off, which would be great. So through the framework, we'll be able to create that kind of sense of clarity and just kind of connection, and really a coherence and legibility for the supports that were already in existence, as well as those that were developed through iNOTE, and make sure that those that we did bring in and design through iNOTE were really addressing any gaps or kind of building in a constructive way on what was already there. So moving towards an online student support community that can really be intuitively understood and integrated as part of the student experience as a whole. So thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and that is the student framework.